Alrighty. Hey, bosom friends and Fermyon friends. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Fermyon Live. This one is pretty special. So with me is Tobias Fenster, fellow MVP, Docker captain, and also, I think, a couple of additional awards. Before we jump right into the topic, so maybe Tobias, introduce yourself and make yourself comfortable with our stream.
Yes, for sure. First of all, thanks for having me. Really a pleasure to be on the show. I've watched the previous episodes, really loved it. So really happy to be here today. As you already mentioned, Tobias Fenster, I'm one of the founders and managing directors of a company called 4PS. We deliver a cloud-based ERP system for the construction industry. So on the off chance that anyone in the audience is working for a construction company, we might be able to offer something there as well. I'm always working on the technology side of things. So started my career as a developer, development consultant, made my way to CTO, head of development, that kind of roles. And also I'm working on the technology behind or beneath our product at the moment. And as you mentioned, I'm also active in the community, a Microsoft MVP and regional director, a Docker captain. So I'm doing a few things. Love to talk about the technology I work with because that's my passion. I always say I'm a manager by career, but a developer by passion. So that's really what I love to talk about.
And that's always a good combination, right? To basically be in charge of something and knowing about the insights, and maybe also the hard parts where we struggle with building something because you get sidetracked by something and get stuck on because you want to get it in that way. And it's always good if you can, have both a point of view and to understand what's maybe why you have to push something further down the road. That's great.
Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, I saw you already playing around with Spin like a long time ago. I think it's like
Indeed.
at least 1.5, if not even 2 years ago, right? So you have already had some like exposure to Spin and to WebAssembly and used it for building different things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw it initially. I have to admit, first of all, I didn't get the point, but then pretty quickly following you and other people, I understood what the story is, what the benefits are. So I started to kind of actively search for opportunities where I could use it. So I created a little tool that we're using internally. And that gave me the confidence that actually you can do a lot of things. It works pretty well. And then when another scenario came up, and I think that's what we're going to talk about today, it's about verifying Bluesky accounts. I thought that's actually the perfect opportunity for me to play around with it a bit more and use it for not really a production scenario because it's not like a ton of users are using this or are making money out of it. It's really just a side project that I liked, and I'm happy to be able to use Spin in that environment and then get a bit more knowledge to later maybe also use it in a business environment.
That's great. So you mentioned already this episode we will talk about your verified Bluesky. So maybe from a high level point of view, what is it for those who haven't stumbled or did not stumble upon it so far, or are just curious about what you actually created with Spin and WebAssembly?
Yeah, so if we start from the requirement, Bluesky came up, I would say, I don't even know. I was there kind of early with an invitation, but not a lot was happening there. So I kind of stopped again. But then a couple of weeks ago, especially the cloud native tech bubble, I would say. So a lot of people I'm following on Twitter or on LinkedIn, they suddenly started to use Bluesky. So I took that up again. And I realized I actually like that a lot. I don't want to do advertisement for Bluesky because it's probably also worth mentioning. I'm not at all connected to Bluesky. My little tool also is not connected to Bluesky, or connected to the tool, but not to the company. But I really liked it there. I also realized, okay, if I'm moving from one social network to the other, how can I actually figure out that I'm following the right people? Because anyone could just create a profile on Bluesky grab, I don't know, a profile picture from LinkedIn or from Twitter and just put it into Bluesky and use the same name, and I would follow someone I wouldn't necessarily want to follow. Not a big deal, I know. This is also about tech bubble and so on. But still, I mean, social networks are about trust. It's about following people, understanding to a degree who is on the other side. So the idea was I want to have something that is externally verified, that has a connection to a Bluesky profile, and then use that to say, yes, this is actually that person. So as an example, the Microsoft MVP award is something that a lot of people in the Microsoft ecosystem that are also influencing, sharing publicly have. And that is something where people at Microsoft are actually validating that, yes, this is that person. That person has spoken on a conference. She has great video blogs. She has other things that she's sharing. So that is a person that we actually know about. So let's give that person an MVP award. So we have kind of external verification where it's difficult to cheat to get that as someone who isn't that person. And my thought was, if I can ask those people to put their Bluesky profile on the MVP profile, then I know, okay, that person actually is verified as the MVP. So I know this is actually a real person, and they the Bluesky profile on their MVP profile, and I can make that connection. So maybe it's easiest if I just show how that works, but that's basically the idea.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So while you're setting up your screen sharing thing, maybe so the idea is, okay, we have this air quotes new social network, right? Which is like what used to be the Twitter experience like a decade ago, right? With a simple stream of short messages, right? Where you can find other people. And so the idea is verified Bluesky to give to add a little bit more credibility, or to, maybe make you discover your friends that you know from conferences and different like tech events all over the globe.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
So do you at lower section of the interface, you should have that present.
Let me see. I'm sharing, selecting the screen.
Cool.
And share. Now you should hopefully see my browser.
Yes. Let me add it to the stage. There we are. Okay. So now we are looking at your MVP profile.
Indeed. I could have also used yours, but for the sake of simplicity, I used mine. So what you can now see here, I do have the profile URL on top, and this has a specific ID. So this is basically identifying myself. This is a stable URL and a stable ID that I can use. And I have also, if I go here, added my Bluesky profile as a link on that page. And that is something that only I, as the MVP, can change. So I know this is actually valid. And if I use that link and open that one, this is opening up my Bluesky profile. So now I know, okay, those two are kind of connected. And what I then can do is I can go to the Bluesky verification tool that I built. I put in my Bluesky handle. I select the source that I want to use. And you can see here I have added a number by now. Mostly community programs, but also a few conferences have started to use it. So I can, for example, select the MVP profile. I can paste in that ID that we've seen on the URL, and I can say verify. And now it's basically checking, is this a valid Bluesky profile? Is this a valid MVP profile? And is the link of the Bluesky profile found on the MVP profile? In this case, it says yes. It's added me to a couple of starter packs and lists, and I get a little icon on Bluesky. So you can see here in my posts, I'm now getting the Microsoft MVP verification badge that I can see here. So yeah, this is basically the whole story of the tool.
Okay, so basically you're connecting the dots between those like community programs and the Bluesky or the Bluesky profile that one has, right?
Yeah, indeed. And I'm basically just storing that connection in the backend to be able to also validate in the future. And I haven't implemented that yet, but my idea would be to maybe run the same verification maybe once per month and check, yes, is that person still an MVP? If yes, perfectly fine. If no, I might send a message, look, verification failed. Is there something going wrong? And if that fails, I don't know, 3 times for 3 months or 3 weeks, I actually don't know yet, then I might remove it as well. So to be sure, this is really a current validation or verification and not something of the long gone past.
So, okay, this makes sense. I mean, many community programs like the MVP program have like a cycle where you have to, put in all your activities in order to get rewarded and to remain in the program. Because, I mean, life happens, right? And one may not be able to, do that many contributions anymore, or maybe shifted his interest to other technologies. So there could be like a place in time where I won't be awarded again as MVP, and then after still to be defined interval, the badge would be removed again from my Bluesky profile, so that the lists or starter packs, is it called, if I remember correctly, that you build are in let's say up to date, right? So they will also be current.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe as you mentioned it, just to show, it's the badge that you already mentioned, but it also creates starter packs. So just to show you here, this is basically the starter pack of all MVPs. I have posts, so I can take a look at what people are doing, but I also can use this with the little follow all button here, or if that's the original idea, if I'm a person joining Bluesky initially, I can use that to get started. So basically, as a starting point, I could follow all MVPs or all CNCF ambassadors or all GitHub stars. So there are a number of things that I already built. And then there's also the lists. That's kind of a similar setup where I have, again, the posts, but also the people, and then I can check them out and follow them. I can also share that with other people, or I think also pin it on my profile, so I have that in the future and can check it as well. So that's basically the 2 scenarios: have your badge, but also have a list and a starter pack of people who have been verified.
Okay, so from a technical point of view, is the one of the badges that your app creates, is that like an attribution or like a property that you proactively store on the Bluesky profile, or is that something that, I don't know, Bluesky pulls or reaches out to your app again every now and then to look for badges? How is the mechanism there? Do you know that?
So that's a standard mechanism of Bluesky. It's called a labeler service. So if I go back here, and that's actually if our listeners or our audience wants to use this and see the labels on other people, they also need to do this. It's explained here as well. To see the labels, go to the host account and subscribe. And what this means is there is a host account for this, which is called Verified Bluesky, and that one has a number of labels. So if you want to use this, you would see above here a subscribe button. I have already subscribed, so for me it's unsubscribed, but you should see subscribe if you haven't followed. And then you can select the labels that you want to see. Here again, you see the full list, and maybe you're not that interested in Microsoft technology, but you're interested in GitHub and Java, so you could use those. Or you see a number of speaker badges here, which I will also hopefully expand in the future. So this could be something where you say, yes, I'm absolutely joining the amazing Color Cloud conference, so I want to see who is a speaker there, and then select Show Badge. But it's also not flooding you with all those badges if you're maybe not interested. And this is a standard mechanism by Bluesky. You need to set up a labeling service. They have also open sourced and shared the tool they use internally to manage and administer those labels. So I have basically just set up an instance, connected it in the right ways, and then my tool is only adding those labels to the profiles, and the rest is taken care of automatically by Bluesky. And maybe also worth mentioning, if you have that on your profile, you see here three labels have been added. And this is just, my account. I could also say appeal if I think this is actually wrong, or I had one or two people who reached out and said, yes, I actually am an MVP, but someone else seems to have added my information. I don't want that. Then you click on appeal, I get a notification and can remove it. So this is basically the whole Bluesky part is automatically done, or not automatically done, but very well set up and also shared by the Bluesky team through the labeling service.
See, so it's kind of like a two-way relationship, right? First step, I have to verify the credibility for receiving that badge by using the website or the app you build, and the second one, if I want to see all the badges throughout my followers or the people I follow, then I have to subscribe, was it, or follow verified Bluesky label service as well.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. This is cool. So so obviously it looks like you keep on adding more and more capabilities, or like community programs and conferences you mentioned as well. So I think there was, if I remember correctly, it was CNCF who started giving badges or something like that, like credly things when you spoke at certain conferences. But this seems to become way more popular these days, that as conference organizer, you hand out digital appreciation to the speakers. And so you mentioned, what was it, Color Cloud Speaker?
Yep.
So they proactively reached out to you and asked you, hey, could you add our conference to that service? Is that how I could think about it?
Almost just the other way around, because I think the little verification tool is not yet known to a lot of people. That's why I, as a Color Cloud speaker, thought, well, that could be interesting. And actually, one other conference I'm speaking at, so I reached out to them, showed them the idea, and they agreed. And then I hope this is kind of snowballing, because as I quickly learned, a lot of the organizers of the different conferences seem to speak to each other. So I'm seeing follow-ups from that. So I'm hoping that what you're describing, that people reach out to me, will start in the future. For now, it's mostly my initiative on the conferences. On the community programs, there is actually community members who reacted to my posts and said, well, I'm a CNCF ambassador, wouldn't it be interesting? Or I'm a Google developer experts, I think they are called, wouldn't that be interesting? So on the community programs, it's starting to be a two-way street. For the conferences, I have to say it's mostly me reaching out.
All right, yeah, but still, I mean, it's great to see the list of potential badges that one could add to his or her profile, or to their profile, is growing. That's great, and also it makes it easier to digest through all the through the big tech bubble that we are all part of, and also maybe I'm seeing like capabilities like these as a way to stay current. So maybe people jump on a new opportunity, and what although they were used to be like Azure, I don't know, professionals, maybe they will work on AWS with their new job, right? So it's also a nice way to see maybe how interests or how engagements are changing over time.
Yeah. And I also thought about, for the conferences, it would be nice to have those lists. So if I'm at a conference, or maybe preparing for a conference as someone in the audience, it would be nice to have that list of validated or verified speakers. So I know, okay, whoever is speaking and has a profile of Bluesky and took the 3 minutes to set it up, I can easily find them on that list, and I can maybe follow the bus a bit that typically comes with a conference, that I see, okay, which other people are there, what are the speakers sharing, can I get a glimpse behind the scenes, and that kind of thing, so that while the conference is happening, I have an easy way to get everything that is happening on Bluesky around that conference.
I see. Maybe a question that just came up in my mind. Is there so I mean, or you did that like a couple of minutes ago. You put in your MVP ID that identifies yourself or how you are represented on mvp.microsoft.com, where you have that profile page, right? Isn't there a way to link that page to the to the badge somehow? You know, that when I click on the badge of maybe your profile, that I end up on your MVP side. Is that something that's possible?
The labels basically just have one description.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I can just show you. That's probably the easiest, and this is the backend that I just talked about. Verify Bluesky. Here we go. And there we have a configuration, and that configuration basically just defines which labels or which badges are there. And then all I can say, okay, this is the name, so this is what actually appears, and then a quick description. But that means that every label has one fixed link. It's not like you have a lot of them, or individually change them, but it's just one description that shows up for that particular badge.
I see.
So this is basically what you can see here that appears. So I can't basically individually link, unfortunately.
Okay, but still, I mean, it's still, helps to digest through all the, like, the huge lists of people following you, or the other way around.
Yeah.
All right.
And
so this is
a bit of context for, you find someone who knows why, I don't know, Amazon is stupid or Microsoft is doing bad things. And then you see a little badge that says, actually, that person is a Microsoft MVP that might have, a different, add a different piece of information to how to read that message. So I also thought about maybe it's a way to keep some people honest in their opinions.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it helps. That definitely helps to, add some more meaning to, what's it called? The messages that are shared on Bluesky.
Yeah.
It's not tweets, right? It's messages, I guess.
I also know exactly.
Okay, this is great. So, and the app itself, you mentioned that you took Spin for Spin. So you build it basically by using Spin as an application framework or runtime, so to say, right?
Yeah. In the beginning, I even used the Fermyon cloud to run it because of a small technical limitation. I'm now running it on my own Kubernetes cluster, but maybe that's something for later. But yeah, from a development standpoint, I immediately use Spin as the backend. So I was pretty sure I wanted to do the checking of the profile, both on the verification side and on the Bluesky side from Spin. I used Go because that's where I felt most comfortable. Not that I'm a big Go developer yet, but that's something I dabbled a bit with in the past. So that's what I used there. And I have to say it was a really pleasant experience to build it, to run it. I had the help of GitHub Copilot for that, and that of course also helped. But now it's up and running as a Spin application. And as I mentioned, the backend was pretty clear to me from the beginning. And then I realized, okay, the front end actually also is extremely simple. I only need a bit of HTML and JavaScript, and that's it. So I decided, okay, let's take a look at the static web server that Spin also provides, and that also works amazingly well. I have the fast response times. It's basically instantaneous if you open up the website, which is actually doing 2 calls to the backend to also not only get HTML, but also get the statistics of how many people are verified at the moment. So yeah, it works extremely well also for the front end for me because it's such a simple front end. And then the third component was how do I do persistence? So how do I store the ID in the verification and the ID of the Bluesky profile? And there I use the key value store of Spin, which actually, again, exactly does what I need. I have a key, I have a value, perfect. So persistence also was very easy for me. So at the end of the day, it's the triggers to do the verification, where the verification code is running as HTTP-GO templates are used there. Then the front end, which is just the static file server, and then the key value store for saving or storing the information about the verified accounts.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you mentioned that you're not like the Go expert by day, let's say it that way. So I think if I remember correctly, as part of your job, I would expect you to write C# if you write code.
Yeah, it's C#, and it's even more obscure in a niche, I would say, because we're building on an ERP system by Microsoft called Business Central, and that has its own programming language called AL. So I'm basically all over the place, but certainly not in Go.
Yeah. But I think that's one thing that I think it's super underrepresented these days. That, for example, with Spin, right? We write functions, we could say, right? So you have a small set of responsibility. You mentioned the HTTP Go template. So all you as developer, all you have to do is basically write enough code to respond to that incoming HTTP request in the way you want it to. And this makes, at least to me, when I go back like a couple of years, it was like, oh, this Rust thing was it to me, right? Rust got my, or I get interested in Rust, right? But as part of my day job back then, I was not able to write Rust. So I used Spin to, throw myself into Rust more and more. And, so that was also a great opportunity. So Spin makes learning like new languages super easy because you don't have that big monolith, right? You can always let's say, separate different parts of your application and say, oh, this one is tricky. Maybe I'm not that familiar with, let's say, Rust in my case. Maybe I'm more confident in writing that in TypeScript because I'm used to do that for years. Then I can just mix and match it, right, to address my needs and to get exposure, maybe on a individual cadence to a new programming language.
Yeah, fully agreed. And just a small comment on that, because that really, still amazes me if I do new things in Spin. I mean, it's pretty new, and it's not like you have 1,000 bloggers and vloggers and whatever talking and sharing about it. So in that sense, the information, the number of information sources you find by just searching the internet is kind of limited. But as you and other people within Fermyon are doing an amazing job with creating the documentation, creating samples, creating blog posts, I really have to say, for each and every challenge I had, I found a relevant blog post. And because it's coming from Fermyon, I also know it's very relevant. So for those starting out with it and are maybe a bit afraid, okay, how am I going to learn? How am I going to figure out how all of this works? I would really say, go ahead, use the Fermyon documentation, the blogs, the developer documentation, etc., and you will find it very, very easy. At least that's my experience, and I think you and your colleagues are really doing an amazing job there to help people adopt it. So thanks for that.
That's amazing feedback. Thank you. Hopefully it's just me, but at least my screen is frozen.
Oh no.
Okay. Maybe it's just on my side.
Okay, I hope so.
Maybe it's just on my side, but yeah, this is amazing feedback. So thanks for that. I mean, the entire team at Fermyon, as you said, does an amazing job in producing content in order to make it discoverable, but also, make people aware of the capabilities that one could. What could you use Spin for, right? And as you said, HTTP, key value store. So we have a set of APIs, or Spin provides a set of APIs that one could leverage to build new things. And maybe it's time to take a look at some of the code from your app.
Yes, sure. So let me switch to the structure here. And by the way, this is also shared on GitHub. So if you go to github/t-fenster, first letter of my first name and my last name, and then /verified Bluesky, you find all the code there. And if someone wants to take a shot at adding a new verification source or has ideas how to, do this in a better way, I'm more than happy to help or to show. This is really meant to be developed as an open project, and with all the feedback and all the contributions I might be able to get, I'm really happy to. So if we walk through the code here, you can see a lot of those validate components here, and each of them is a dedicated spin or WebAssembly component. As you can see in the beginning, I wasn't sure about the name. It should actually be verify, but yeah, I started off with validate, and that's what the naming is. At some point, I might have to redo that, but that's where we are at the moment. So if we take a look at, let's do the regional director verification or validation, because that's the easiest. You can see here a number of structs that I use to easily interact with the feedback that I get. Then I have a number of specific information like the module key, the module name, a label, the explanation text, etc. So this is basically what makes that particular backend special. And then I have a verification function that does the actual verification. So I'm just, in that case, calling a backend. As you can see here, I'm adding the ID that has been added as a verification request. Then I'm getting a response, parsing that response because it's JSON in this case. And then I just check whether the Bluesky handle is in the regional director profile. And that's it. So really, that's quite simple to implement something like this. And the other backends are kind of similar. So the CNCF ambassadors, the GitHub stars, the Java champions all do the same thing in more or less sophistication. Sometimes it's a JSON backend, sometimes it's a YAML backend, sometimes I'm just parsing whatever HTML is returned by something. So yeah, that also works. And maybe worth mentioning the thing that's the easiest. So if you're a conference organizer or maybe even a participant or a speaker and want to contribute, for sessionized-based conferences, the tool often used for call for sessions and event organization, that's extremely easy because in that case, all I need is a publicly available ID that you can see here. So for conferences, it's really, that's all the code that is needed. The rest is done in some generic code I have written in the backend. So yeah, that really is very easy if you want to contribute an event, sessionized-based event that is really just a number of lines of code, as you can see here.
That's a maybe quick interruption there. I think that's the joy of having a service like Sessionize, right, which would like a vast majority of conferences use these days. I mean, obviously there are others, right? Paper call and other
run events, for example.
Run events, exactly, which has been created by a fellow MVP a couple of years ago. Yeah, that's great because I like a couple of minutes ago I thought about, well, maybe there's also a way to integrate Sessionize, because that was basically the idea why I asked, hey, could you put a link under a badge, right? Because it would be like so nice to immediately link also your Sessionize profile from your Bluesky profile. But I mean, due to what Bluesky allows you to do, I mean, at least there could be like a Sessionize badge on the profile.
Right? Yeah, indeed, Sessionize, or then indeed the specific conference. Yeah, so that is basically the verification or validation stuff. And then, as I mentioned, the what's called here static, that's basically only the front end, which is then presented with the integrated web server. So I only have an HTML page. I have an additional HTML page I can put up in case of maintenance. And then I have a little overview page where you can see the different verifications that are there and can see the starter packs and the lists, and then a bit of CSS. But that's basically all there is to the front end.
It makes me feel so good. It makes me feel so good because I'm not the only one who's still using Bootstrap because it's so convenient to write.
Sure. Absolutely. and I thought a bit about, okay, how efficient does the front end need to be? But actually, the target audience are techies in the IT industry, so I felt kind of comfortable with keeping it very minimal.
Yeah. I always, introduce my demos when I do something with UI, something that has a UI. I always tell the audience, hey, this is going to be developer nice or developer look and feel, right? So don't expect fancy animations or matching colors. I mean, If it's just me, you know, hacking on something, I'm not that good in CSS. So I'm still, like, for 10 years right now, more than happy with Bootstrap. It does exactly what I need for most of the times.
Indeed,
That's great.
Same here. Yeah. Yeah, and then maybe just to quickly go into the Spin TOML file, I have a number of configurations. So I need to set up what the backend account is, what the password is, etc., etc. So that works also quite easily. And again, the whole story of how do I share secrets, how do I set that up, how do I make sure this is not spilling into my code, but only used during production, what's the way how to set it up during development. Again, I just follow the Spin tutorials, and it works amazingly well. So the standard problems you have as a developer, I would say they're all pretty well covered, and took no time to set it up. Yeah, and then we have the different triggers. For example, the validate MVP, the validate RD works in the same way, where I basically just add the route where I want to watch for it or get requests, the component that is used to render the responses, and then because of the security model, we have the backend that I need to add here, so I can actually call out, of course, Bluesky, because I'm interacting with that, but also the verification backend, in that case, a specific Azure website. So yeah, that's basically, if you want to contribute, that's all you need to know and you need to do.
Yeah, when I was looking at the code earlier today, I stumbled exactly above that line, and I knew, like, years ago when some, I think, MVPs came up with that API that's still, you know, there. that was funny, seeing that URL again. Yeah. That's great. So basically, you are explicitly whitelisting the origins where the particular component is allowed to send or do outbound HTTP calls to. As you said, addressing the strict security model from WebAssembly here. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's maybe also something worth mentioning. When I thought about building this, I mean, I'm in IT long enough that I know, okay, as stupid and as irrelevant as it might seem to you, someone out there might be willing to hack it or might be willing to do bad things with it. So the security model of Spin and WebAssembly really was a big benefit for me as well. But because I'm now pretty sure I can handle whoever is calling something. And at the end of the day, what are people going to do? I mean, all I'm adding here is information that's out in the public internet. So it's not like I have any secrets here. So they could maybe abuse it to call something malicious, but that would be immediately visible to me if someone just hands in a pull request that wants to reach out to a website that doesn't make sense. So I was also, pretty happy about the security model again, because that gave me the confidence to know, okay, I can securely build this out in the open. I can open up for pull requests if people want to, because I can most likely immediately spot if they want to do something bad with it.
That makes sense. Right, this looks great. So yeah, as you said, it's a pretty flat hierarchy, right? You have the UI, the front end layer, and then for every, like, scenario or every community program / conference you may want to support in the future, you may just have to add a new component, or in the case of Sessionize, it's more like basically repurposing the existing component and giving it another identifier for the conference.
Yeah, indeed. I actually wrote a little blog post, so you can also find that from the GitHub repository, where I explained the different steps to get up and running in even more detail with samples, etc. But yeah, basically what you mentioned is exactly right. That's the way to do it.
All right. So from a coding perspective, I mean, that walkthrough gave a lot of insights on how you approached it and how you implemented it. Although I got kicked out by my browser, basically crashed. But this is great. So moving to maybe the other side of the picture is not just how to build it, is how to run it. And if I remember correctly, you are running this right now on an AKS cluster.
Indeed, yeah. So just to also mention it, initially I put it up on the Fermyon cloud, and that again was an amazing experience, how well that worked. So I was really, really happy with it. Also setting up continuous integration, continuous deployment, all of that really worked extremely well. And I would have stayed there just for one specific limitation in the Fermyon cloud, that you can only have, I think, 1,024 key value pairs in the key value store. And as I'm lucky enough that 580 or something like this people have now verified, it's kind of on the horizon that I will reach that limit at some point. So I decided to, or had to move it somewhere else. And then AKS was the natural environment for me, because I've spoken about SpinCube, the way how you run Spin applications in Kubernetes environments at conferences in the past. So I already knew what to do. And then Azure is basically my natural background. So that was the obvious choice for me. The thing that I stumbled across a bit was how to implement the key value store, because you need to have some way of persistence. And first I started with the Cosmos DB, but I kind of ran into the limits for the free instances pretty quickly. So I decided to switch to Redis as a backend. And I know that's actually a cache and not persistence, but you can abuse it in a way as a persistence layer as well. So that's what I did here. And then I created that connection. Again, extremely easy, very well documented, very easy to set up. The Azure part is known to me, but I think that would be the same for a lot of people. And then the integration with Spin worked extremely well. There was a small glitch in the Redis implementation that I ran into, but there I can only, again, compliment the Fermyon team. I created a bug report. I think it was picked up, I don't know anymore, initially by someone else. You took a look, forwarded it to the right people. We were in a bit of a back and forth, how I could test, how I could help to find the root cause. And then I think within a week, a full turnaround time from creating the bug report, there already was a pre-release that I could use to get it up and running. So it really was an amazing experience, again, to open up the bug report, which in a way is never welcome because people have to work on issues. But it was very well received, great feedback, great communication, and then extremely fast turnaround to get the fix. So yeah, again, a compliment to the team for how well that was handled.
Yeah, that was great. So Brian from our team took on that, let's say, challenge, or addressed that bug that we had in reliably interacting or with Azure Cache for Redis, because there was different circumstances came together as always, right? So yeah, he and others on the team did a great job in addressing that concern, and that was basically, as you mentioned, right? There was the inner loop, so addressing the bug, obviously releasing, doing a patch release of Spin, but then, as you mentioned, right, you were using SpinCube on top of Kubernetes, so there was a SpinCube, or there was at least a KWASM or containerd shim for Spin release also involved. So yeah, everything played out pretty well in the way we also expected it to do. But still, yeah, it was great to get that feedback. And regarding your the limitation you mentioned, so on the free tier of Fermyon Cloud, we have like a default limit for key value store to have like 1,024 keys. In the meantime, we took a look at that, so we are happy to increase that limit also if necessary. If you ever got tired of managing your own AKS cluster, we're happy to.
Might happen tomorrow.
Yeah, there's only so many Kubernetes clusters one could manage, right?
And to manage at the end of the day,
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, Microsoft and others, all those big cloud vendors, they do a great job in giving all us like managed Kubernetes environments. But still, one could spend his time differently, right? If you don't have to.
It's always the same with that kind of abstraction, like the Fermyon Cloud is providing. If it breaks, then it can be annoying, but if it's stable and works well, and that's my experience so far with the Fermyon cloud, then it's perfect, because there's all those things I don't have to worry about. Could I do it? Do I have the technical skill? Probably yes. Do I want to do it in this scenario? Definitely no. I mean, in a business scenario, maybe the solution would be, or the result would be different when thinking about such a challenge. But in that case, all I want is a stable, reliable way how I can run that solution. It's not that much traffic that comes in. All I need is the stability. And so far the Fermyon cloud was perfect for that. So if you say the limit can be increased, I'll jump back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, sure. We can just let us know what the let's say expected limit should be, and then we can bump that definitely. So this is great. So you took like SpinCube, deployed that to I guess a pretty small Kubernetes cluster, and
just the one
basically and basically took your spin app and pushed that to, I mean, if you're in Azure, I expect you to use either, I mean, you're a Docker captain, right? So either you used Docker Hub or you used Azure Container Registry, one of both, I guess, just to distribute your app through that and then basically deploy it to Kubernetes.
Yeah, and that is taken care of by the GitHub Actions again. So maybe it's worth jumping into that one as well.
Sure.
Just to show. So if we go into the repository, and again, if anyone in the audience wants to contribute, this is the place to go to. But what you can see here basically is the actions, where I have one for continuous integration. So whenever, although I'm working solo on the project so far, I'm still working with feature branches and pull requests just out of habit. So I have a continuous integration that's doing the build whenever I'm merging into master. And then we have the continuous deployment over here. And that one is actually, as you mentioned, pushing this to an Azure Container Registry. So we have the build and push step here. And that one is just building all the different components. And then it's pushing it into a Azure Container Registry repository over here. So just to show, where can I edit this? No, where is the edit?
Oh, you're looking for the workflow file? That's on the left-hand side, the last.
Did you have it? Otherwise, I also have it here, I think.
Worries.
Yeah, over here, indeed. So all I had to do here was, again, follow the documentation and then run this build and push step. So that's just building and pushing. Of course, I had to set up username and password to authenticate against my container registry. And then I have the registry reference over here. But again, that's it. And then for deployment, I'm also pushing it to my Kubernetes cluster. While it was running on the Fermyon cloud, I think that was a different step here. That wasn't spin push, but I think something like spin deploy. And that immediately just deployed it into the Fermyon cloud. But really, when it comes to workflow setup or pipeline setup, I mean, I can't literally imagine anything that would be easier than this.
Yeah, you're right. So there are like different actions that we provide to basically do whatever, like building or installing a particular version of Spin in CI for maybe testing purposes. If you want to see, hey, there has been a new Spin release, so you can do matrix builds, with latest and known or named releases of Spin as well. So different capabilities that we thought that would be useful if, like you did, right, doing the end-to-end story and building from an, or maybe, I mean, basically it is from an MVP to a final like product or service that you went through all the different stages, right? I remember when I reached out to you about this verified Bluesky thing, there were like 2 batches that one could receive from verified Bluesky. Right now, it's like, what is it, 8 or 10 different batches that one could add to their profile. So that's amazing to see that. I mean, obviously there are like struggles or pitfalls that one has to take, but overall, how you explained it so far, your experience has been pretty good. That's
absolutely.
awesome. That's awesome.
Also, I mean, just to mention that, if in case people are wondering, I'm also a huge fan of dev containers. So I set this all up in a dev container, so I don't have to install anything on my laptop or on a virtual machine that I use for development. Instead, it's just in a dev container. So if anyone wants to get started with this, all they need is to clone this into a dev container, and the rest works automatically. I did have a bit of an issue with the TinyGo release. I might have to revisit that one to figure that out because something broke, but maybe or probably it's already fixed. But then for Spin, I can immediately use just a feature.
Yes.
And yeah, that's pretty immediately the setup that I need. And I have a reliable, reproducible environment to do my Spin development. Works amazingly well also.
Yeah, it was also pretty, that was pretty interesting when I looked into dev containers like more seriously, like, I don't know, a couple of years ago. I was also surprised that the community has already added a feature, a Spin feature, so that you can just pick whatever like base container image you're interested in, and then Visual Studio Code, if you use that to create that dev container JSON. It asks you, hey, which features do you want to add, right? And then it's just a checkbox away to basically get Spin CLI into the dev container.
Yeah.
But I remember I was playing around with TinyGo as well, and I think my result looked similar to yours, like a simple, okay, once the container is done, run this, run this command,
The interesting thing is I did the same for a conference, I think summer last year, so not that long before I started with Verified Bluesky. And there I had a dev container exactly like this, also using the TinyGo feature. And then whatever in there broke, so I had to do this manually, but I definitely have to go back and see whether it actually is fixed by now.
Yeah, I mean, but overall, I mean, it's super convenient, right, to have that pre-configured development environment that you can, I mean, you can use it on your machine, or you can use it even, I think it's also, if you start a code space, they take this also into consideration. So VS Code, in air quotes, in the browser, I mean, you can obviously also open that up from there and just, use a remote connection. It seamlessly works.
Yeah, absolutely true.
So this is great. This is awesome. So you said that, so when one opens up the UI or browses your app, right? What's the link first to get started? Is it verified Bluesky dot?
Indeed, verified bsky.net.
Bsky.
That's the domain I ended up.
Okay, and you said you pull the number of active or of users that are currently using your verified Bluesky. Where are you? How many users?
So if I scroll down here, you see the list, how many for the different verifications, and a total of 583. And again, this is by the power of WebAssembly and Spin. All I need to do is this. You can see how immediate this is, and that just does a count of the Redis cache and returns the numbers, and then I'm doing a bit of JavaScript to format it a bit nicely. But again, this is just a backend call. Yeah. As techy as it is, but just the JSON might be a bit too much and not enough like this.
Yeah, it's super interesting to see the distribution of numbers throughout the different community programs. Obviously, I mean, there are less GitHub stars than there are MVPs. I think I don't know, 3,000 to 4,000 MVPs. That's something. Maybe.
And I'm kind of active there as well. So it was easier for me to reach out to my fellow MVPs and also regional directors. But I was really amazed by the amount of Java champions and Oracle aces, I think they are called, who also responded and used it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm on the other side. So there's this weird Microsoft MVP who was reaching out about doing something on their platform to get a badge. But really, it was very open, very welcoming. Got in touch with a number of people there, and they were happy to share it within their, I don't know, communication channels. And so I'm at almost 200 Java champions and Oracle aces.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Docker Captains is missing still due to the limitations that we can't update the profile as fast as we wanted to, right?
Yeah,
But
indeed.
but we're getting there, right?
I hope so too. I reached out to the community program again, and I'm pretty sure they'll add that sooner or later.
Yeah. So this is great. So what's on the horizon for Verified Bluesky? Is it you adding more and more conferences and community program? I mean, I think if I remember correctly, AWS, they also have like a similar thing, or like a community
AWS
program.
Heroes, indeed. Yeah,
exactly.
Indeed. Yeah, so AWS and Google, those would be the two big ones I still have on the list, and there are a couple smaller ones where people also reached out to me that I have on my to-do list. And then conferences also seems interesting to me. So that's the two directions I want to take it. Otherwise, I made one bad design choice in the back end. So at the moment, I'm storing the Bluesky profile, but as you've maybe seen from my profile, you can also use a DNS name that you own, Tobias Fenster IO in my case, as the handle on Bluesky. So what that says is you can change your handle. Behind it, you have an ID, and I should have actually stored the ID, so when someone decides to change their handle, it still would work. But unfortunately, I didn't do that. So that's the one big technical debt that I have, and that I need to fix at some point. But otherwise, it's mainly extending into more community programs and conferences.
Yeah, this is great. So as you already gave a shout out, so let me quickly share the URL once again. That's github.com tfenster/verified-bluesky. So if you folks are interested in contributing to the project and help Tobias address or get more badges onto Bluesky, feel free to submit a PR, file an issue, and help to make this even bigger, right? I mean, it's great to see those numbers, especially. I mean, when did you start it? And it became like I saw it in my bubble. That's always for context. I saw it like early December, if I remember correctly. So it's like within
a bit longer. And let me see. Spin Toml definitely is part of the initial commit. When did that start? Oh no, it's the other way around. Yeah, so probably 2 months ago. So not a lot of history.
But that's great. I mean, seeing from zero to obviously the first 100 are the toughest one, right? But going from 0 to almost 600 within 6 to 7, maybe 8 weeks, that's great. That's great. I mean, it's still.
I was also. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say it's still like. Obviously, it's like sharing among like fellow MVPs is the easy part, but still, it's amazing to see numbers growing continuously and more and more people using it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, as I said in the beginning, I jumped on it as an opportunity to build something real with Spin. I really loved using the technology, and I was not sure at all whether anyone else would agree with the idea and would think it's a good idea and would be willing to put in their data, because I'm really not doing this myself. Other people need to put in the data, otherwise it won't work. So I wasn't convinced. But then, as you mentioned, getting that feedback and seeing it grow and seeing other people share and how happy they were about their badges, etc., that was really, really very nice. So I'm hoping I can keep this up for a while.
Definitely hope so as well. I mean, it's super great, and also I like the story of that idea. Okay, let me do a rough POC. Maybe let me build a small MVP. Take it from there. Right now, you think about extending it, or you already extended it beyond community programs to conferences, and who knows what other opportunities will spark in the near or midterm future. So that's great, and also it's super nice to hear your experience from how Spin made that easy basically to achieve. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. Anything else you want to let people know about Verified Bluesky, or do you think this was around like giving the idea, sharing a little bit about how it is built and where you run it. Anything else you think could be interesting for other developers or viewers out there?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. I think the idea is not that complicated, so I think by now that should be easy to understand. There are a couple of niche areas like a number of exports and imports I created, but that's, I think, maybe something if someone is really interested in the details. But I think we covered the overall picture very well. So yeah, thanks again for having me and allowing me to share that story.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. And let me again, so if you want to have your conference listed there as well, or your community program, I think easiest would be to file an issue and start a conversation on Tobias repository. So thanks once again for joining me on stream. This was super interesting to see how you build or how you went from idea to the final application or the final product, so to say. So this is great. Awesome. Alrighty,
Yeah,
with
thanks
that,
on my side as well.
Thanks once again for sharing all the insights and answering the not scripted questions. So although we met like 4 minutes in advance of the stream, and Tobias asked me, "Hey, what are we going to talk to? Do you want to see code? Do you want to talk infrastructure?" And so I said, "Well, let's see. I think that's the most authentic way of doing a live stream is actually doing it live. Obviously, it shouldn't be intentional that my browser like died once, so apologize for that. But I mean, you're a professional speaker, so you just kept on demoing. That was great.
I have to say, I didn't even notice I have my camera set up on top here. So I try to look into that direction, and then on the screen below here, I actually can see you, but I didn't go there. And I was so much into my monologue that I didn't even notice that you didn't ask questions. Not sure if that's
Even
a
better.
good thing or not, but it worked.
No, even better. So it was a smooth experience for all the people out there who watched it live or who will see the recording. So recording obviously will also be up on YouTube, and I think YouTube needs like an hour or so processing. So once again, final thanks Tobias for jumping on this on the stream, and we're super excited to see numbers for verified Bluesky growing.
Let's see. I'll share. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.